Hi, and welcome back to the Canary Room. Coming up on the show today, we're going to get the training cages ready for the first round youngsters. We'll check back in the shed too, moving some more of the birds around. We've got a couple of little hatchings too today. We'll look at some of the equipment that we use in the Canary Room and something new that we've got in the battle against Mite. What you may notice today is you may see Matt Cam in shot every now and again, and that's because we've had a couple of emails into the show of people wanting to know how we make it. So in the next episode, you'll see behind the scenes of the Canary Room. You'll see how we put the show together. As always, sit back and enjoy. We're going to step up the show training of the fifes today. And to do that, as you've seen in previous episodes, we've hung the training cages on the front of the cage, and today we're going to take them away for the first time and we're going to put them on one of the shelving units, which is in the Canary Room. What we need to do though is refresh the training cages. So the majority of the rubbish has been taken out of them from last year, but they need a really good rinse through and a disinfectant. So our old favourite Dr. Johnson sterilising fluid, we're going to run this through them, but before we do that, we're going to give them a rinse through with the Dettol. Talked about the Dettol in an earlier episode about one of our prevention of mite. It's a lavender base. It'll smell nice, but obviously it's going to kill 99% of any bacteria that's on here. Important, young birds very susceptible to picking up things, so you want the training cages to be really cleaned. We've got 4 to do. We'll give this one a go now. Real simple, straightforward approach. Like anything really, you just need the right things to do. I use the bottle brush that helps get in between the wires. I use a scourer as well, that will help me. And then the final thing is just a J-cloth. You'll notice as well there's a piece of string on the top. Now I'm going to take this piece off, but we will put more string on. You've seen in a previous episode I've done that with watercress, but now what I'll do is I'll put string on the top. It helps the birds lift themselves up, it gives them something to peck at, just keeps them a little bit interested when they're in there. So whip that off, I'll clean this out, pop it in the sink, give it a good clean, and then we'll have a little look at the finished product. You've seen how we've done the cage, so we've gone through a pretty methodical approach to it. It's pretty sparkling now. There's 1 or 2 bits where it could do with a touch-up of paint. I'm obviously not going to spray it directly before I put birds in it. But I've said before, it's important, that any germs, anything that's been sort of lingering on this throughout the time that it hasn't been used is all cleaned off. So 1 down, 3 to go. We'll let them dry then, and later on in the show we'll pop some of the first round young in and see how they look. The cages are done. We'll take them into the conservatory for them to dry, and then we'll go into the Canary Room. You'll notice in the greenfinches that there's only 1 bird in the cage. This Saturday gone, in the local park, there was a huge firework display. Now I wasn't aware of it and hadn't expected there to be fireworks in July. Unfortunately, I came into the shed on Sunday morning to find the hen greenfinch dead in the cage. Worse still, the 5 young that had moved from various nests under the cinnamon buff hen were also dead. Now I can make provisions for fireworks in November at a time when I expect them to be, but in summer I wasn't able to make a provision, and as a result I've lost some nice birds and some young. This little fellow here, we met last time. He's feathered up really nice. He's bred out of the variegated buff cock and the yellow hen behind me. Now she's started to build up again, and she's actually pulled some of his feathers from around his leg. I don't particularly want to breed from her. I haven't put a cockbird in with her because it's a little bit late now, but I've had to move some of the other eggs around following the fireworks. So the variegated couple who were on 6 eggs abandoned them. Now I've moved them under a ticked buff hen who was sitting tightly still. You'll remember she had the red pole eggs. The blue behind me is now on the red pole eggs. Her eggs, if you recall in the last show, weren't properly developing. So the red pole eggs are under the blue and she's sitting. The fife eggs are under the ticked buff hen. They're due today. We'll have a little look now and see if any have hatched. You can see in the corner of the cage that there is an egg on the floor. So it looks like we've got at least 1 chick in there. We'll get the nest out now and we'll take a little look. There's just 1 chick in the nest so far. The other eggs are full. I haven't bobbed them. They do look like they're actually moving without the chick moving them. So that would suggest that, you know, maybe 1 or 2 more will hatch. There's 6 full in there. It'd be great if all 6 hatched. But for now there's just 1 little chick. Viewers to the show will recall that we use a series of treatments to try and keep mite at bay. We've had a fair amount of success, and we have had mite in the shed, which is only to be expected, particularly as the weather soared earlier on and then went very damp and cold and horrible. I've just picked this up, a friend of mine in Manchester, in the last couple of days. It's for the diametic earth. It's a dry puffer. I'll put it together now and I'll show you how it works. But what it will allow me to do is get in all the nooks and crannies. I'll move the remainder of the fifes in a second. There's still 2-3 hen fifes with nests. The rest are finished. All the cocks bar 1 are finished now too. So let's get them in their cages, and what I'll do is I'll give this its first run out in the shed and see how it works. So the thing with the diametic earth is it gets everywhere. It's like a very, very fine dust, but what you can see now is that it's all in the canister. There's a fair amount of it over the canister, but very quick, and you can see it lets off a thin cloud. So we've cleaned one of these cages out here. We're going to move the birds around in a second. So if we just go into shot here, and we'll just treat this cage. So you can see on the cage bar here where the powder is. And what it's supposed to do is, as the mite crawl across it, it's supposed to dehydrate them and then they die. As I say, it's the latest addition in the canary room to the battle against mite. So I've ordered some Charaphil Red, which is for the red poles and for the Norwich and for the red factor canaries. The red pole season hasn't quite finished yet, so they're not quite going into the molt. They may go to nest again, they may not. But what we'll do in a future episode, we'll show you how we make this up. We'll put it either in the water or in the egg food mix. I'll probably do it in the water, so guaranteed all the birds will take it. With the reds, it'll help give them that depth of colour. It'll help colour feed the Norwich as well. Normally I'd use Carafill Orange for the Norwich, but I'm not going to show them this year, so I'll just give them a little bit of red. They won't take it all on and they'll still develop an orangey feather. The red factors are obviously a red based bird, so they will go red. As we've seen, we've got a rose and an intensive red cock, and this will help with the red poles. Particularly this year I'll have 3 over-year red pole cocks, so they'll get the red blaze and the red crown as well. So we'll see that in a future episode, but it's arrived for now. What I will do is make sure I colour feed them on the very bottom cages, and the reason I'll do that is pretty obvious, I guess, which is what I don't want is any of the colour feeding going on and affecting any of the other canaries or the other British birds in the shed, because they aren't colour fed birds. In fact, if a fife has any evidence of colour fed on the exhibition show bench, it will be disqualified. Winding down the season now, you know we've got young in one nest and some red pole eggs to do, but everything else is pretty much finished. So the cages behind me I'm going to put into their winter configuration. Talked about it on a couple of episodes now. We'll molt the cocks off in single cages, we'll molt the hens off in 4s and 5s. Cages are done. Took a little bit longer than the time lapse you've just seen, but you can see now the back cages for the fifes are all in their winter preparation. So we've got 3 flight cages here with the fife hens in. They're about 16-inch fronts. It's about 48 inches, just over 48 inches, so 4 foot. And then the 16-inch fronts here. Blue cock, one of the heavily variegated buffcock brothers, and his other brother in the cage behind me. Those 3 cock birds are definitely staying for next year. I've already made that decision. The birds in the next row down, you can see we've got the ticked yellow cock. Not bred anything off this bird. He has filled eggs, but he's stunning colour. Not sure about him. Bird behind me is a variegated yellow cock. He is bred some really nice birds for me too. He'll probably stay. And then underneath we've got the dark buff cocks, which we saw, and the dark yellow cocks that we saw in the previous episode. So set up now for the winter. You can see I've just got to put a mineral block on this top cage for the birds here. And if we come in a little bit closer, you'll see that some of the birds that we moved last time on the show have already started to drop the feathers. So we've moved all the birds around now. I'm going to pop into the conservatory and get the training cages, and we'll have a little look at this year's young. Cages are nicely dry. I'm going to put a little bit of sawdust in the bottom of them, and then we'll put them up on the shelf. We'll catch some of the young and we'll take a quick look at them. It's the first time the birds have been in training cages and taken away for any length of time. Now, I'll only put them on here for 10 minutes or so. Any longer there would be water on them. You can see the birds. The bird closer to the camera, a variegated buff, and the bird next, which I think is going to be a yellow, are taking a really nice shape. The clear third one along is pulling, and the variegated buff on the end is also pulling. Training is all about settling the birds down so they can show their shape. The variegated now close to the camera is starting to look like a real stunning bird. Could do with showing a little bit more leg, but when we put the string on later on, that will help it lift up off the perches, its natural inquisitive nature. I like the look of 2 of these birds already, and I know the variegated buff on the end is also a nice bird. I'm earmarking them all for the show team. The clear isn't showing itself particularly well at the moment, but again, That's a nice bird and should make the show team too. In future episodes, we'll look at all of this year's young up close. We'll look also at their parents, and in those episodes we'll work and decide which birds we're going to keep and which birds we're going to let go and the reasons why. But for now, after what's been a relatively difficult season, it's lovely to see a few fifes in the training cages showing some real potential. Time in the birds room of the molt where there's an awful lot of dust and feathers, as we've already seen. One of the things that I use, again another purchase from Amazon, is this little air purifier. It's on all of the time and you can't half notice the difference. The air is cleaner and fresher when this is on. So for me, an essential part for the birds first and foremost, but also my health in the birds room. Next time on the show, we're going behind the camera. We're looking at how we put the canary room together. So we've done some filming behind the scenes today, and we'll film the edit too. Don't forget, check out our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and catch up with our latest news on YouTube. Until next time, take care. Coming up on the show today, we'll start dancing and singing and doing jazz hands. I didn't like that show, it wasn't working for me, it wasn't getting me full beauty. If I stand here long enough, I can turn it into a pot of gold. It'd be really good if you were filming that. Yeah, I'm right in the middle of a shot.